Hold on a second. Okay, so let me just share my screen here with you. Can you all confirm if you can see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
See my screen now? Okay, perfect.
Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
See my screen now? Okay, good. Okay, so here we go. All right, so hello again and good morning. I am Rihanna Harilal, President and founder of the Voice of Lupus Foundation. Here we go, right. So the Voice of Lupus Foundation, a pillar of strength. As we say, there is us in lupus, and for a life with no lupus, we must first know lupus.
The letter of the day is L. L is for lupus. Lupus is a disease that attacks your immune system. It is not contagious. It does not have a cure. It is not a blood or skin cancer. It don't have anything to do with HIV and AIDS. And it's definitely nothing to do with leprosy as they have in the Bible. Although we as Trinis, we have to learn a little more about these different type of things. So let me tell you, call the lupus hotline today at 327-0220, and you'll get some more information about these things. Remember, at the end of the day, there is an us in lupus, so we must raise awareness today. Lupus.
So the Voice of Lupus Foundation is a registered NGO fiercely committed to improving the quality of life for all people living with lupus in Trinidad and Tobago since 2011 by investing in initiatives that promote advocacy, awareness, public education, and support of patients. The VLF is the only national force devoted to giving one of the world's cruelest, most unpredictable, and devastating diseases a voice through advocacy, public awareness, and education, while giving caring support to those who suffer from its brutal impact. As president and founder of the Voice of Lupus Foundation, I'm the recipient of the Hummingbird Gold Medal in the sphere of community service, empowerment, and education for my work. And also in 2015, I was awarded the National Youth Ally Award by the Ministry of Gender, Youth, and Child Development for my efforts in raising awareness of lupus in Trinidad and Tobago. The following is an infomercial that I'd love to share, capturing basically the stories of those who battle with lupus. It's very short. This is our first infomercial. It was filmed. I wrote it and I filmed it with the help of some former colleagues in the media in 2012.
There are days when I pray for the wisdom to get through lupus day by day.
I live in indescribable pain every day.
Lupus is a daily struggle just to get out of bed.
I'm in the prime of my life, and lupus has robbed me of part of my future.
I am 18. Lupus has forced me to quit school. Now I am permanently disabled. My body cannot distinguish good from bad, so all my cells are in battle.
There is no cure for lupus, and in Trinidad and Tobago, awareness is lacking.
Lupus can feel like a death sentence. I wish I didn't have to suffer all the time.
The treatment for lupus can be worse than the disease.
And can also get lupus, but it is not contagious.
I refuse to sit back and allow lupus to take a hold of me.
So the Voice of Lupus Foundation's Lupus Learning Resource Center, it's an arm of Voice of Lupus. We aim to provide education and support to individuals affected by lupus and their families. The center, which is located right here in San Fernando in Pleasantville, provides the much needed education, resources, and support to help individuals with lupus and their families better manage the disease and improve their quality of life. The Lupus Learning Resource Center offers a wide range of resources and services, including we host educational workshops, monthly webinars, and a library of information about lupus and its management. We also donate monthly food hampers to patients who live off social grants. Many patients are unable to work. And of course, with medications, we're able to donate medications owing to donations that come to the organization for those who are unable to access it, unable to buy it. As you know, there have been, since the pandemic, the global shortage and demand for hydroxychloroquine. That is one of the medications that is used to treat rheumatoid arthritis, as well as systemic lupus, even discoid lupus, persons with psoriasis. It is a drug that is used for autoimmune diseases, especially with lupus, and of course in managing the flares and the joint pains and that sort of thing. And that drug has been very difficult to source, meaning that a lot of patients, they're not getting it at the hospitals, and they are forced to go to the private pharmacies. And of course, we saw with the pandemic, during the pandemic, when there were global shortages, and of course, when persons learned that it could be a potential cure for COVID-19, we saw that there was a lot of price gouging taking place, and the demand and the supply, it was really a fight to get these medications, so we're able to provide that. And of course, when we receive donations, whether it's corporate or even individuals, we have some persons logged on here who are contributors financially. They have lupus, but they see value in what we do, and they're always willing to make a contribution to be an assistance to someone in need, especially those living with lupus. The Voice of Lupus Foundation is endorsed publicly and affiliated with the Lupus Foundations of America, Canada, Australia, and Lupus Europe. In March of 2017, we were made an honorary overseas member of Lupus UK, and the Voice of Lupus Foundation is also a member of the World Lupus Federation. These are just some of our letters, endorsing the work that, I have started in the last 13 years. We would have had the opportunity to lobby Capitol Hill in New York, in Albany, with US Senator Kevin Parker. And of course, 2 representatives from Voice of Lupus, including myself, stood with a lot of the lupus ambassadors of the Lupus Foundation of America to do that proclamation. Of course, San Fernando made history for World Lupus Day this year, where we had His Worship, the Mayor of San Fernando, Junior Regrello, doing the official proclamation for the city and even for Trinidad and Tobago. So that is it's worth a round of applause for His Worship, as well as for the city of San Fernando and the corporation's support. We have had extensive media coverage over the years, and it's about getting the information, getting the word out. I mean, I'm just going to flip through. Of course, I'm talking about the hydroxychloroquine issue. During the pandemic, I was at the helm of lobbying and pressuring the government to ensure that there was an adequate supply of hydroxychloroquine for lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago amid reports of global shortages. Many lupus patients logged on here have benefited from us providing the medication during the pandemic, because hospitals didn't have, you would have had to go to the private pharmacies, and of course price gouging was really a big issue, so we would have had multiple platforms on the media just giving our voice, to just lobby for patients to ensure that their, this life-saving medication would not have been interrupted with their regime. Of course, during that whole climax of getting the interviews and just continuing to just have that conversation out in the public domain, we were able to secure 20 boxes that were donated to the Voice of Lupus Foundation. And these are some of the patients who would have benefited. A lot of these patients, they do not work. Some of them don't even receive public assistance and disability, so we were able to provide that at no cost, owing to the donation we got from AP Scott. And then later on, that's the distribution company, AP Scott, but the actual company that makes hydroxychloroquine, that is Ipca Drugs based in India, they reached out and they donated 3,000 doses of the medication. So we got 30 boxes donated, and we were able to be a blessing to all lupus patients. Of course, the extensive media coverage continues over the past 13 years. I've made some headways in at least having the conversations, and of course, some endorsements from, some of our local celebrities and, the governor of the central bank, health minister, former chief secretary, some of the entertainers in the industry, national heroes like Dwight York. We've been able to, just drum up that support. And of course, some comedian, as well as former president of Trinidad and Tobago, as well as Olympian Keyshawn Walcott. So let's get to the cream of things. Could it be lupus?
Could it be lupus? Lupus symptoms can show up in many different ways.
Skin rash, pain or swelling in your joints.
Extreme exhaustion, no matter how much you sleep.
Low-grade fevers you can't explain.
Hair loss.
Recurring sores in your mouth.
Sensitivity to the sun. Pain in your chest when taking a deep breath.
Fingers or toes turning blue or white and feeling numb.
Getting an early diagnosis of lupus is critical for preventing long-term consequences of the disease. Learn more by contacting the Voice of Lupus Foundation at 327-0220 or 221-9677.
Remember, there is us in lupus.
Could it be?
And indeed, there is us in lupus, and that's why we continue to have these conversations. We continue to entertain and to commit to, bringing awareness and educating. Now, how many of you know that there are 4 types of lupus? I'm seeing some of you, so you can show with your hands if you knew, yes or no. There are actually 4 types. Now, oftentimes when you hear lupus, most people are referring to systemic lupus, and systemic lupus affects all the organs and tissues in the body, whereas there's discoid lupus, which affects just the skin. Now, the skin is the largest organ in the body. And then there is something called neonatal lupus. That's a type of lupus that is found only with mothers who have lupus, and they have had a baby. And when that baby is born, that baby actually comes out with physical manifestations of the disease, which would be the skin rash, maybe there might be discoloration, that sort of thing. And then, of course, later on in testings, there might be organ involvement and premature and all that sort of thing, okay? The last one is called drug-induced lupus. I am not sure many of you knew that there was actually this type of lupus, and not to instill any fear or to panic you, but there are certain medications that are being used to treat cardiovascular diseases, hypertension, even diabetes, that can cause lupus-like symptoms. Now, that usually goes away when you stop taking the medications. However, if major organs are involved, then it becomes life-threatening and permanent. So those are the 4 types of lupus. Now, the Voice of Lupus, I'm seeing someone, I'm sorry, a participant has enabled closed captioning. Okay, all right, so let me take that off. Okay, right, so the Voice of Lupus Foundation over the last 13 years, we would have, of course, have some signature projects that we work throughout the year. Now, advocacy is not just because it's May, it's Lupus Awareness Month. May 10th is World Lupus Day. The organization works round the year. And we have bolstered the awareness in Trinidad and Tobago. And of course, some of those projects entail our annual Public Information Day and Candlelight Vigil to observe World Lupus Day. Of course, we would have done things differently this year in the city of San Fernando. For the first time, we actually held a Public Information Day and health fair at the library corner, the infamous library corner. And because of that, I understand that the city corporation has made into policy now that persons can now use the library corner to do health fairs and to bring awareness and that sort of thing. So another milestone for the organization in terms of setting that tone and standard. So I'll give myself a little clap, give the organization a little clap, because we're making some headways. Now, we do have that yearly partnership with the Carafin Games. The Carafin Games use sports to build public awareness of lupus within the financial services sector. We also, in the years gone by, I mean, the pandemic messed things up. So for 3 years, we did not have any public events, but we usually host health fairs with the Trinidad and Tobago Defense Force. We are also visible at the Trade and Investment Convention that's under the Trinidad and Tobago Manufacturers Association. We also work with the Diabetes Association, the Caribbean Lifestyles Diabetes Center, among many other NGOs. We would have hosted quarterly lupus support group meetings for patients, and of course, our ongoing Let's Talk Lupus educational sessions. Our monthly Tobago awareness campaigns at Penny Savers Supermarket and also at Gulf City Mall in Lowlands, Tobago. We host our annual Christmas luncheon and, of course, our monthly hamper drive at the nation's hospital. Sometimes most times now, we do it through the center and, of course, in Tobago. And we assist low-income patients through the Hand of Hope project, in which we provide financial assistance to cover the cost of medical testing, screening, medical equipment. There are patients who need wheelchairs, walkers, nebulizer machines. I remember one elderly woman reached out and she needed a high blood pressure monitor, and we were able to reach out to someone who sponsored that for her. So, you know, we work hand in hand with corporate and, of course, private citizens. So this is some of the highlights for World Lupus Day 2023. You know, you hear me talking over and over again about the city of San Fernando. I'm a daughter of San Fernando. I'm a very proud daughter of the city of San Fernando. So coming home was a big deal. Of course, we had students of the Maloney Government Primary School coming to bless us. They sang, you know, Michael Jackson's rendition of Heal the World. It was really a beautiful day. Of course, here is the Mayor of San Fernando doing the official proclamation where we received our certificate, the proclamation certificate. And in the years gone by, of course, we would have culminated on the Brian Lara Promenade. For years, we would have held our awareness World Lupus Day observances in Port of Spain. These are just some of the highlights of those events.
And now it's going wrong and you're scared as hell. You're gonna, or you're gonna tell, maybe
100 bad days made 100 good stories. 100 good stories make me interesting at parties.
100 good stories, 100 good stories make me interesting at parties. Yeah, no, I ain't scared of you. No, I ain't scared of you.
some photos capturing our candlelight vigil. This would have been Woodford Square in Port of Spain. Of course, the monthly Tobago hamper drive in Tobago. We have not resumed since the pandemic. Hopefully this year would allow us to go over to Tobago to resume our work. We are making a difference, as small as it is. We are still making a difference, and we continue to fight for lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago, and we will continue to advocate. We will continue to build public awareness and education until things are better for us in terms of the quality of care in Trinidad and Tobago. So what you see versus what you don't see. I know a lot of persons can attest logging on here who have lupus. People only see the good side, but they don't see behind the scenes, like when you're flaring and you have to, many of you are lying in bed, like Zelina and Deborah, you all are in bed, lying down because today is not really a great day for you. But when you are up and about and you get dressed and, you know, people don't see that, you know, they don't believe that you are ill. And that's a big challenge. And I think the World Lupus Federation, when we were planning the theme for this year's observance of Lupus Awareness Month and World Lupus Day, the theme was, let's make lupus visible, because the symptoms of lupus are not always seen, especially when you battle systemic lupus. For those of you, I know there are a few logged on here that has discoid or cutaneous lupus, which affects the skin. So you would have really bad manifestations physically. And it's very painful, especially when you have those eruptions on the skin and your skin is inflamed and you're battling also like psoriasis. And because it's not uncommon that lupus patients develop other autoimmune diseases. I know that there have been lupus patients who develop 3 and 4 different types of autoimmune diseases because of the progression of the disease itself. Lastly,
and our eyes look at the day. Thousand times again, and our eyes look at the ways it's thousand times again.
There is us in lupus, and with your help, we are reaching more people. We are reaching more people to tell them that lupus is a devastating disease that needs to be a public health priority in Trinidad and Tobago and around the world. On average, it takes a person 6 years from the onset of their symptoms until they receive a lupus diagnosis, and that's not good enough. That's 6 years too long. And in that time, the disease can do so much damage. As a lupus advocate and a patient, I know we must do better. Lives depend on it. Lupus is life-threatening, it's life-altering, it's potentially fatal, and it affects thousands of Trinbagonians. It's more pervasive and severe than people think, and has a devastating impact that the public doesn't realize. While this condition has no boundaries, understanding lupus can help control its impact. So we are asking persons logged on, you know, we need to continue the awareness, continue the dialogue, continue the support for the organization to do its work. And of course, we need to do better in terms of, I've been saying this throughout the month as I do many interviews on the radio and television stations, that lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago are essentially medical orphans. And I do not apologize for saying that, because many patients are bounced around And they are a part of so many clinics. Right here, I know in San Fernando, I know that telemedicine served its purpose during the pandemic, but there are still patients waiting 6 and 7 and 8 months to get an appointment. And this disease requires a multidisciplinary approach. And that is why at the helm of this organization, we have that heart to set up the Lupus Learning Resource Center, essentially to be the one-stop shop where patients can be cared for. I'm hoping that as we continue to do our work and lobby and be passionate and committed, you know, persons who are experienced in medical and even in the nurses and stuff, they would come and they would volunteer and give back of their time so that we can look after some of our patients, because many patients are not able to physically afford a private consultation with a rheumatologist or any other specialist out there. And they are reliant on the public system, which we all know is severely burdened. So we're hoping to change things and to be the agents of change. And I hope that you'll, as you continue to benefit from the organization, I'm talking to our lupus patients, we will have the support and we can do more. So for those of you who would like to donate, here's the information. Feel free to come on board as a monthly contributor or one-time giver, whatever you can afford. We appreciate it. So I want to say thank you to the Public Health Department of the City of San Fernando, the City Corporation. Thank you for facilitating this. I am going to stop the screen sharing now and, of course, facilitate any conversation you would like to have. I mean, we do have some lupus patients on, so you can hear from them if you would like, in terms of asking questions. If you know someone who has lupus, you can, you know, refer them to the organization so that they can be a part of our community. So Mina, the floor is open to your staff. We can take some questions.
Firstly, we at San Fernando City Corporation would like to say thank you for a very informative session. The two questions that we have, what are the methods of a person who exhibiting symptoms that was on the presentation? Where do they first go to seek help? That was the first question. And the next question is, what sort of tests does an individual have to take to be diagnosed with lupus?
You broke up there. What is the second question?
What type of tests would an individual have to undergo to determine if they have lupus?
Okay, right. So the first question, what are the symptoms of lupus and the criteria for testing and where they can go?
Yes.
Okay, good, right. So I'll just, you know, combine both questions into one. So first of all, testing for lupus is not like testing for diabetes or testing for high blood pressure or cancer. Lupus is such a complex illness. It's known as the great imitator because it mimics so many autoimmune diseases and diseases out there. And that's why it takes so long. So first of all, you must meet the criteria for testing. And the criteria, according to the American Rheumatology College, you must meet 4 out of 11 symptoms. And you saw that video with the symptoms: hair loss, joint pain, fever, photosensitivity, rashes, ulcers. You may have blurred vision, hair loss. 4 out of 11 symptoms would be the criteria to begin testing. Now, there is no one blood test that can confirm a diagnosis of lupus. So let's say, I'm just going to be random here. I'm seeing Alderman Lazima is online joining us. So Ms. Lazima is showing 4 out of 11 symptoms. What does she do? So Ms. Lazima would have a conversation with her general practitioner, her GP or private family doctor. She would tell her doctor, well, you know, doc, I'm tired all the time. I'm having a lot of aches in my body, a lot of joint pains. I'm having a persistent low-grade fever. I'm having throbbing headaches. I'm having, you know, I notice when I go out in the sun, I don't feel well. I feel like my skin feels inflamed, or A simple thing. I remember there was a young lady was diagnosed with lupus because she had a fungal infection in her toe. There was someone who recently passed away, unfortunately. He was diagnosed with COVID, ended up in ICU. When they checked, all his organs were shutting down because he had lupus. So back to Lizama, Miss Lizama. So she has identified 4 out of 11 symptoms. An experienced doctor will know, but that's sounding like an autoimmune thing. So he would say, okay, if she cannot afford to do it privately, she would be given a letter of referral to go to either the San Fernando, Mount Hope, Arima, Couva, St. James, Arima, Sandy Grande Hospital, because they have rheumatology clinics there. And she would be given this letter. When she goes there, she will have to give it to the clinic. They will now determine if it's a very urgent thing that she has to see the expert, the consultant, in 2 weeks' time. If not, she waits. Sometimes it's a month. Sometimes it's as long as a whole year. When she goes now, then, only then, the rheumatologist will now recommend a series of blood tests that is now linked, like some of them I will call, the anti-nuclear factor, the double-strand DNA, the Smith antibodies, and there are different types of antibodies that has to be tested in your blood to confirm, because remember, lupus is called the great imitator. It mimics so many other diseases. So a lot of time is spent dismissing, it's not this, it's not cancer, it's not HIV and AIDS, it's not scleroderma, it's not a different type of autoimmune disease, you know, it's not rheumatoid arthritis, because there are many people who are logged on. At one time in your diagnosis, you were told you had rheumatoid arthritis. But then after living with rheumatoid arthritis for many years, it manifested into systemic lupus. So oftentimes there is a misdiagnosis that takes place, and it's not uncommon. So Ms. Lizama would have gone on to the public health system. She would have been doing all the blood work, and then she gets her diagnosis. And then most likely she'll be referred to the Voice of Lupus Foundation for that support and patient one-on-one. So that's how it goes. Any other question?
No, that would have covered the questions that we had.
Yeah, okay. So it's very complicated, right? As many of you would see, it's a very complex, hard to diagnose. And there's no one blood test. I'll reiterate that. There's no one blood test that can confirm a diagnosis of lupus.
I have a next question. Is there any counseling service available for patients who have lupus?
Yes, there is. And mental health is very close to the Voice of Lupus Foundation. We actually held last week, we held a session on mental health with a focus on depression and anxiety. And we're participating in a survey that's being done by one of the doctors at the psychiatric clinic in San Fernando, because there are so many issues that affect lupus patients, not just the disease, how it affects them physically, but oftentimes we don't talk about the emotional aspect. So yes, we do have some counseling sessions that take place. Usually it's in the group setting.
How can an individual with family members who have lupus access this counseling sessions or group setting?
Well, they'll have to contact the Voice of Lupus Foundation. So feel free to share our information or flyer or
okay. Yes, definitely we will be sharing it. Thank you.
Yes. And you know, I'm seeing that there are quite a number of lupus patients on board. So you know, I would say it's an open forum. I mean, we are raising awareness, and what better way for patients to even talk about what living with lupus would be like. And I don't mean to put anyone on the spot, but I am going to call on Deborah. You see you smiling. I know you sense that I was coming to you, but you know, many of them looking on, they're seeing you lying in bed. Deborah, how long have you been living with lupus? And you know, feel free to just share how lupus has affected you, and you know what
I was
some of the
diagnosed.
symptoms.
Well, basically, I've been diagnosed about maybe 40 years now. I've had lupus. I got lupus when I was 11. Well, first I thought it was leukemia. I wasn't sure what it was. So I was in the hospital for practically 6 months. I got the full works. I had the body butterfly rash, the nose bleeds, the joint pains, lost, everything. Was in the hospital. I spent some time. It really is a really bad time for me now because about 2 years back, I had ovarian cancer and I did chemo and radiation. I don't know, I think I told you about this, Fiona.
Yes.
And since I did the chemo, they said one of the side effects of the chemo is how I did it on my spine is it kind of damaged my bones and make it a little more brittle than it was before. So when the weather sets up, which is really, doctors and all just be surprised when I try to explain it to
So
them.
you are essentially a meteorologist by your body's
Yeah, I am, yeah. But my family just tell me that I could tell them when the rain going to fall because from the time we have a black cloud, there's no rain going to fall. And I just go normally by Dr. Telemac. I've been seeing him for 30-something years. And he gives me steroid injection. There are 5 different types of injections I just get from him each time I go to him. This time with my flare, I went to him on last Monday. I didn't get much relief. So I was advised to go to Dr. Poon King in St. Anne. So I have an appointment for Friday, please God, to go and see Dr. Poon King privately to see because my back is the main problem right now and my knee. Really bad.
Yes, I remember you telling us that the reason why you don't physically come to events is because sometimes you can't even walk and, just, and the thing about it, if you were to take that camera off and persons were to see your photos, you don't look ill.
Oh,
you don't look ill, right? And a lot of patients here don't look ill. So there is that, a lot of people dismiss the urgency or the legitimacy. And many patients have to spend time validating that they are ill when I don't think anybody should have to go through that, yeah?
Yeah, well, like you said earlier, that when you are fine and you get up and you dress and you go out, nobody will believe that you have lupus, that you have been living with this for how much years and being this kind of pain. Nobody will ever believe that you just had to go through this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not easy.
Yeah.
And I see my family crying, watching me, and I know they're hurting.
Yes.
Crying, watching me, because that type of pain I just be in sometimes is, I don't know.
It's difficult.
Unbearable.
It's unbearable.
It is very difficult.
But Deborah, I'm sure many persons have told you this, and we have all heard it, and it has been said to us that we are really strong. And I want to say that you are very strong because it's not easy to not be able to do the basic things. Like I struggle sometimes to even get out of bed. But we press on nonetheless, and we show up and we still put our brave faces on. So thanks for sharing. I want to get a perspective from a younger patient, and I want to call Jewel or Josanne, either or, to just unmute your mics and just share briefly, what it has been like living with lupus as we continue this dialogue and we continue to, raise awareness and allow persons into our lives as opposed to just myself lobbying and advocating, but to share. So Jewel. I saw Josanne exited. Josanne ran away.
Oh goodness.
Yes, Jewel. And if
you
you are comfortable, you can put your cameras on so we can see you.
I really don't want to put my camera on today because I'm in bed today.
Okay, so a lot of us are in bed today, no problem. But we can hear you loud and clear.
I don't know what to say.
The audience, Jewel, are persons who don't have lupus. They don't know anything about it. And today's session is with the Public Health Department at the San Fernando City Corporation. So what would you want persons to know about what you deal with on a daily basis, living with lupus?
One of the things, and well, it was mentioned before, although I might smile and I look like I'm strong or I look like I'm well, it doesn't mean that I am well. I do tend to smile through pain, and a lot of us, particularly women, even without lupus, we have been taught from a very young age to smile through pain. And I realize that a lot of people don't believe us when we say that we are unwell. And as much or they just, saying that, you're lazy. And it's not laziness. We are genuinely in pain, and sometimes you can fight through that pain, and other days you can't. You could try, but you won't be successful. And another thing that I would like people to know is that when I say I'm tired, again, it's not laziness. I really am tired. I could sleep for the entire night, several hours, and still wake up and be exhausted. Yes, the medication does help, but sometimes there are days that you could push all you want to push, but it's not going to happen. You could try, but it doesn't. And it's not that I'm faking it. It's not that I'm lazy. It's just that my body doesn't want to do what I need it to do at that particular point in time. But there are days when you're okay, and those are the days that you'll see me moving. Those are the days that I will do things that I plan to do. But outside of that, and I would just like people who don't have lupus to be a little bit more understanding of these two things. We're not faking, and there are days that we're good and other days not so much. And just, be a little bit more understanding when we say not today, please not today. Yeah, that's about it.
What has it been like for you as a young person? You graduated, I mean, you would have had so many dreams, but you do not hold down a permanent job, right? Because of illness?
No, right about now, the last time that I would have had a job that was supposed to be permanent, I would have been on probation for 6 months. And after the probationary period, they told me that, I stay home a bit too much. So and that was about a year before I got my final diagnosis. And I keep, taking time off to go to the doctor, and, they couldn't deal with it. So they didn't keep me on for much longer. And I've been doing job interviews recently, and a lot of times, well, you should disclose if you have any medical conditions, and the interview would be going quite fine. And when I disclose that I have lupus and I explain what it is, you actually see when people's faces kind of fall, or you might see the eyebrow raise, and then they would tell you, you know what, we'll get back to you. And then they will send a lovely email, they don't think you're a good fit for the company, or they don't think you can handle the workload for the company because of your diseases. And yeah, and then you just don't get through. Some of them, they don't even get back to you. The meetings will be going quite fine, everything is all peachy, and then you disclose and they say and they just leave you there. And as you were saying before, there is a shortage of the medications that we take in the hospital, so you usually have to buy it on the outside, and they are expensive. So thankfully, I have help from my dad and well other members of my family, so that I I can still get it, but I'm not working permanently right now. I'm hoping that a couple of interviews that I did recently, somebody decides to hire me permanently. But as it stands, as a young person, people telling you, you should be doing certain things as a young person. You can't, and you're trying to explain to them that you can't, and they just don't believe you. They just say, you're lazy.
Yes. Yes. Jewel, I want to thank you for being so open and transparent and owning your story. I know when we first met, it wasn't easy to even talk about this, and here you are as one of our youth ambassadors for 2023. Thank you for being so open. Okay.
You're welcome.
And I want to remind all of us that we are not lupus. We may have lupus, but lupus doesn't have us, and we are more than our illness. And I think it's about time that people look past the limitations that we may have and we're battling with, and just give us a chance. I mean, it's always been my dream to return to media. I know that God gave me the gift of gab, and I was trained in the early years in 2000 when I entered the media. I was trained by some of the best in the industry who are no longer here, like Barbara Soon, Brenda De Silva, Afzal Khan. These are names and stalwarts in the media, and it has always been my dream to go back to my first love, which is radio, not television. I like to be heard, not seen. And it's not easy, especially when people know me as the lupus lady. I would share that it has been a real struggle to even get back to the first love, because I live on disability, and $2,000 a month is not enough to sustain myself. And of course, what I do here for Voice of Lupus, it's a labor of love and volunteerism, because I am so passionate, and I believe so much in making a difference, because when I am to leave this world, when it's my time, I have done the right thing. I have run the race. I have implemented things that I wanted to leave behind, a legacy where lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago, that they are not going to have to, the reason why they're flaring and the reason why they're sick is because they can't even get their basic treatment. I think that's unacceptable. My heart is to really build a center that we can take care of our patients, where patients from all over Trinidad and Tobago will come to one spot, and they will be cared for, they will be nurtured, they will be helped, and we will help you, and then we say goodbye. Time for you to go outside because you're better. That's the vision, and that's the heart. That's my heart, but I can't do this by myself. And I know that the community I represent, many of us are unable to even, get off of the bed sometimes. And it's tough, so the burden is really a big one. But, for those of you who are well abled in terms of being able to still get up and do things and move and volunteer, sometimes, volunteering is your time. I mean, the biggest contribution you could make is your time, not the dollars and cents, but your time. Showing up to the events, being here on Zoom when we have these webinars, So I want to thank you. So Miss Mina, are we able to have one more person speak, or are you have to wrap things up? I know it's lunchtime soon at the City Corporation.
Hi, President, good day. Our staff was just expressing the sentiments of being so edified by this program. Yeah. It literally opened their eyes, and the segment where the testimonies from persons who have lupus actually opened their eyes and brought tears to their eyes, actually. So we want to say at San Fernando City Corporation, we appreciate every person who opened up and shared the difficulties they are facing. And it literally brought a more sensitization to us to know what you guys are going through, because when you hear lupus, you just think about a person suffering from a disease, but we didn't have the insight of what you guys actually go through. So we want to say a special thank you to the persons who shared, and a special thank you to the Voice Foundation for hosting this webinar for us. And we do hope to work with you in the near future. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you. So ladies, we are done. I believe, I don't think we have any males here logged on. And it must be said that, lupus is known as the woman's disease. It's known as a woman's disease because 9 out of 10 persons who test for lupus are in fact women, but men also get lupus. So, there is that disparity with who tests more prevalently for lupus. But of course, men also get it. And we're seeing an increase in the number of persons at a younger age, because in the years gone by, I mean, I'm 40 years old. I started showing symptoms of lupus when I was between 10 and 13. I started, experiencing joint pain, fever. I couldn't go out in primary school. I struggled to play with my friends in PE and in break and lunchtime. I can't even play with my friends because the sun would get me sick, and I couldn't understand that. And I remember at the age of 12, having to go by my granny and asking her for Aleve. I don't know how many of you know this blue pill, Aleve. It's a painkiller. Yeah. Then there was something called Tylenol arthritis. And at the age of 12, I was taking Tylenol arthritis to manage the pains that I was getting. And we didn't know why. But, all my life, I've always been ill. And I was a chronic asthmatic, and I was on steroids for a very young age, at a very young age, so we just didn't know what was going on. And I remember going to a private doctor, and he was Nigerian. And by the time he just heard the symptoms, and that's why it's important, right? And I keep stressing the symptoms. The symptoms are very common. It sounds like you're having a flu or even COVID-19, because some of the symptoms of lupus was mimicking that of COVID-19. And we were, a lot of our community, when they go to the hospital because they're having a flare, they were being taken to the COVID tents. They were being taken under the COVID tent and putting us who have already immune compromised positions into more risk, because now persons contracted COVID while waiting in the COVID tent to do a COVID test. So it's not COVID, it's actually a flare of lupus, So it has been really an eye opener. So joint pain, fever, hair loss, photosensitivity, rashes on the skin, ulcers coming out in the ears and the nose and in the mouth, hair loss, you might have blurred vision, you might have a throbbing headache. Those are some of the symptoms. So if you are experiencing 4 out of 11, just have a conversation with your general practitioner. It may not be lupus. God forbid it's lupus. We don't want you to have lupus, but it's better that you know the signs and the symptoms so you can have the conversation to start the testing. So it gives you a better outcome in terms of getting the confirmation, and a lot of us patients, we develop something called brain fog, and that's something I battle with. So I'm all over the place. So thank you for your patience. I know sometimes my thoughts can be disconnected because brain fog is real, because you're saying something and then after you just forget what you're saying. I remember having to go to the bank to withdraw some money, and I reached up by the teller. That time I was working Guile. I went to get my pay, and I went up by the teller. And you get a slip of paper to do the withdrawal. And thank God my mom was there with me. I stood there for maybe about 2-3 minutes, and the bank teller kept looking at me. She's like, "You okay?" And I just, at that moment, I forgot what I came to do, one, but I also forgot how to spell my name. I forgot how to spell my name. So, you're just there with the pen and I should know this, right? I know the name, but how do you spell the name? You know what I mean? And we laugh about it. We within the community, we laugh at some of our symptoms because it really puts us in some embarrassing situations. We laugh among ourselves, but it's not to be taken lightly, because many patients develop something called CNA, lupus CNA, which affects the brain. The disease affects the brain, but there's also the treatment for lupus sometimes can be worse. than the disease, because heavy doses of prednisolone and steroids is known to cause problems with, psychosis and affects the mental health aspect of a patient. So all of these conversations are needed. So without taking up any more time, it's been almost an hour. I want to thank you. Alana, do you want to say anything? I mean, you deal with brain fog. You could talk about the brain fog for 2 minutes if you like. The floor is yours. And the floor is open. I mean, even if San Fernando City Corporation staff say we're hungry, time to go, we can stay and have a discussion among ourselves. Yeah. Hi, Alana.
Hi, pleasant good day.
Good day, good day. Such a ray of sunshine. Yes.
Yeah, well, a pleasant good evening to each and everyone. Well, my name is Alana. Rihanna, I think one of the biggest challenge in having lupus is, family members and people around your friends and saying, they're not, like for me, for instance, I've been looking like really, really normal. And, there are days when, I struggle like mentally and, the pain, the pain in the joints. To me, I think the pain of lupus, that joint pain, that bodily pain is one of the worst thing that any human being could ever experience. That pain is like a pain that I cannot even explain. On a scale of 1 to 10, that pain is like 1,000,000. When we do flare, is one of the worst thing ever. And, sometimes as, well, I'm a wife and, sometimes I would get up and I'll be normal and I would be like in real pain, but I'm a fighter. So even in the midst of the pain, I will do my housework, I will cook my food, I will take care of my family. And at the end of the day, I would be like so exhausted. I feel like I run a whole marathon from Icacos to Tobago, to Toco. And as I lie down and say, okay, well, I want to take a little 5, get up, by the time you do so, it's time to make dinner and I'm so exhausted, but you still have to get up and you still have to go. And it has been really challenging because my husband would be like, there's always something with you, there's always something with you, but I'm a real fighter and I just really try to, to fight off, all the symptoms and the things that I may experience. It's not everybody who is privileged to, to actually fight it off. But at the end of the day, lupus is really, really, it is really one of the worst disease that anybody or sickness anybody could ever experience. For me, off lately, I forget like Brianna, I forget every single thing, like how you just mentioned that, you forget to spell your name. Somebody will like walk up to me and somebody will say, hi, what's your name, whatever. And I would just like freeze, like literally, like I can't even remember my name. I just can't remember my age. I just can't remember. And I'm forgetting really, really, really bad. So that is one of my personally biggest challenge right now is my memory. I forget every single thing, but when it comes to the managing of the pains and stuff, I cope with it. I do have pains every now and again, I cope with that. But my biggest fear right now is like losing my memory. And I have a little daughter, and if she only sense that mommy is not feeling well, she does get going to a depression one time. She cannot focus on her schoolwork. She just would be studying me because she know when I'm sick, okay, it's hospital for mommy. And if mommy in the hospital, she worried. So that is why most of the times, even if I'm not feeling well, I would just keep a smile on my face and I would try to do whatever I have to do normal. And every minute she would be like, mommy, you okay? Mommy, you okay? And she comes and she kissing, mommy, you okay? You sure you're okay? You sure you're okay, mommy? Because it's like she does sense, okay, mommy not okay, but mommy saying she okay, so it has really be hard for us as, parents when we have younger kids. They are really, really affected when we aren't well, so I really want to thank Rihanna. Rihanna has been there for me from day one. I was one of the participants who got medications and groceries, food stuff, and, you know, everything. You know, she has always been there for me and for all the other lupus patients. And, you know, I really want to encourage you all today to continue to support her in whatever way that you all can, because she's such an amazing, beautiful soul. Brianna, we love you from the depths of our heart. And I just want to thank you. And I just want to encourage you to continue to do what you are doing for the lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago. And we will continue to support you and pray for you. And we pray that God will continue to lead, guide, and direct you going forth. All our warriors continue to be strong, continue to trust God, because our strength and our source is in God. That is the only thing that keeps me, my strength and my relationship with God. So just find God, find something that you love and focus on it, because every day is not the same. I might be up talking bubbly today, and then a few hours from now, I'm just like a whole totally different person and so much of pain and all how, but God is great. So again, each and every one have a blessed day. God bless each and every one of you. Love you guys. Shalom.
Thank you so much, Alana. Thank you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. The last person I'd like to call on is actually one of my she heroes. She's logged on. Her name is Gillian Lucky. You would have known her, a well-established high court judge. I mean, just so much accolades. She is here, and I know she had expressed an interest to just bring a few words. So Gillian, the floor is yours. Are you still here? Oh, I didn't realize that she sent a, she had to go. She was rushing off to court. All right, so, right. So I don't like to put people on the spot, but, you know, I really applaud the conversation, because we need the conversations. We need patients to own their story and to speak up. I want to call on Elizabeth. Elizabeth, I have known you for, boy, I think it's about 8 years. Feel free to just share. I don't want to tell you what to say.
I don't want to do with that.
Feel free to share, you know, your journey living with lupus. Those of you who have to leave, you are excused. But this conversation is, I really am enjoying it. And I'm so happy to see a lot of our patients, you know, just being so brave to own their story finally and share for persons to understand. Yes, Elizabeth.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody.
Mother, cook, makeup artist, warrior.
Yeah, I look like no makeup artist right now. Hi, everybody. Well, I'm Elizabeth. As Alana just said, I have had lupus for 8 years. Right after I had my son, he was 3 months when I found out. And it has been a very hard journey ever since, ups and downs. But Rihanna noticed that you keep talking about one of these symptoms of psychosis, and I didn't know that was one of them until recently. It was the worst experience ever. I was going through a really hard, tough time with depression.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was the amount of medication I was taking. It was sending me in a really dark place. I couldn't function. I wasn't being that bubbly, happy mom and wife as I was supposed to be. So I decided to reach out to talk to someone, and I realized someone asked the question earlier if there's anyone that we could speak to. So I went to my doctor to tell them, you know, I need somebody to speak to because I think I'm sinking. And I don't know if it's the amount of medications that I'm taking, but the depression is getting really bad. And while speaking to the doctor, she is sensing that, okay, you're a threat to yourself. This is a true thing, yeah. I said, no, I'm not a threat to myself. I'm trying to reach out because I need to talk to someone, because I can sense that the depression is not making my life comfortable. I'm not, you know, who I'm supposed to be. So she said, okay, we could put you onto someone you could talk to. And next thing you know, they said, well, we have to transfer you to somewhere where you can talk to a psychologist or whatnot. I said, okay, no problem. I find it strange that everybody start coming around me like, what's happening? All of a sudden, I'm a threat to myself. Next thing you know, I end up, I'm in St. Anne's.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
When I reached to St. Anne's, I'm telling myself, okay, this is probably where psychologists are, that you can speak to someone. And I said, okay, I started talking to the person, and then I was transferred to another room. When I went to the other room, they took everything from me, and I was in St. Anne's because I wanted to speak about my problem. And all I'm telling them is, no, I'm not going to kill myself. I am not a threat. I'm just depressed. I have lupus. I have problems, whatnot. And having lupus, just saying that, I was like, everybody is looking at us like we're crazy. We're not crazy. We have a real problem. The amount of medications we're taking is taking a toll on us. And they put me in the madhouse.
Yeah.
You know what it is? I had to tell my husband, and my kids did not see me for days. They kept me for 4 days. And all I'm telling myself after that was, I can't speak to anybody.
Yeah.
I am not going to share what problem I have, what I'm going through, because I can't trust anybody, because I don't want to end up in there. I had to talk to a psychologist after, or I don't know, there's a difference besides a psychologist and what's the next one?
Psychiatrist.
Psychiatrist. I don't know which one I saw, probably psychiatrist, because they think I'm mad. And after speaking to them and really going into depth about my situation and having to go through pain every single day, and having to deal with a husband who thinks you're just making up excuses, even because, I mean, I'm not looking all that good right now, but I'm always dressed, I'm always put together, I'm always looking well put together. So to him, it's like, you're just making excuses. You're just using that as an excuse, always in pain. So when it is, I explain to them everything that I'm going through, the amount of tablets I have to take, only then they released me to realize, okay, it's just lupus. So it's not an easy journey. It is really hard. And I have gone in a place where I don't want to talk to nobody. I think anybody could understand if you go through that. You don't want to talk to nobody. You don't want to let nobody know what you're going through, because they'll think you're crazy.
Yes.
So it is hard, because I noticed recently my kids and all started flunking in schoolwork because I don't have that time to always be with them, the consistency of doing the work and all of that. So that it's affecting them as well, because I'm always sick. I can't do much, all these things. So, but I have a very supportive husband, I must say, even though I can't work and it's him alone, is one hand clapping here. Yeah. I tried getting work and that didn't work out. I don't last 2 weeks. If I stand in too long, my hips going out of place, I have too much pain, my fingers swelling. I just, can't work. No matter how I try, I don't last long. Yeah. So having lupus it is hard. And as Rihanna said, I am a makeup artist, but not a very, consistent one, because of sometimes, it's my hands I have to work with. And I have swollen fingers most of the times, and I can't hold a brush. So it's only when I'm available and, could do it. So, and I appreciate these groups. Rihanna is doing such a great job. Sometimes I feel so sad when I see her foot swollen and things that she's going through. It's like, how is she able? How is she keep doing this? I would have given up a long time, but she just keep pushing. So this is just, she's given us a hope that, hey, if she could do it, we could do it too. We could just keep going. So that's just my story, we just had to keep going. I try a lot of different things, a lot of herbs, try to detox from all these medications as well, as often as I could. And, you know, just to keep going.
Yeah. I'll answer that question. How do I do it? I think it's a supernatural strength that comes from God, because I understand the call, because what I do here, many of you don't know this, but when Voice of Lupus was birthed, I had just attempted suicide. I attempted suicide in 2010. So this month is actually my 13th year anniversary of life. I attempted suicide multiple times, right? Because what you talk about there, Elizabeth, you have a husband, you have family, you have support. I did not. I didn't have support. I lost my career. I lost everything. And I did not know how to process that. So I felt that it was really quite pointless living in this life. But I really thank God that, you know, the God I serve is a covenant-keeping God. I'm a believer. I call myself a believer. I am a believer. I'm a child of God. And when God spared my life, because I remember so distinctly, in 2010, it was the month of May, you know, and, you know, when I survived that attempt, when I woke up the next day, because, put it this way, in 5 minutes of being in the hospital, after being triaged and stuff, they put me on a ward because they knew I was going to die. They had pulled the curtains and they told my mother, and then I had a friend who was there. He came, and it was basically to come and say goodbye, because I was not going to last, but they were not going to keep me downstairs. They were going to put me to be comfortable. So I got to bed. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. I was hemorrhaging. I was hemorrhaging from all, put it this way, all holes from my mouth, my anus, everywhere was bleeding out. And mind you, I didn't tell anybody. I did not tell anybody because I desperately wanted to die. And I think conversations like this is needed, because we have to remind ourselves where we were, or where we could be. Let's not go there, because there is life and there is hope. Once I learned this, once there is life, there is hope. And take it from Rihanna. I'm speaking to you as a lupus patient. I'm not speaking to you as president of this organization. I'm speaking to you one-on-one, just to be real with you. When I attempted suicide that time, and I lived like the prodigal son, I came to myself and I realized that God had a plan for my life. Because I don't think there was anybody at that time who desperately wanted to die like me. I did not want to live. And I made it my business to ensure that I wouldn't live. But I thank God he's a covenant-keeping God, because we break covenant with God, but he doesn't with us. And, you know, the word of God says nothing can snatch us from the palm of his hand. And that's so true, because that's my testimony. Nothing snatched me. I wanted to end it all, but God didn't give up on me. And when he saved me, I recommitted my life to the Lord. I went back and I recommitted my life because I was in a backslidden state. I recommitted my life to the Lord, and then Voice of Lupus was birthed. I remember being fired from my job. I had just landed a really good position at a television station. And like Jewel, I lasted maybe 3 weeks, because I picked up, I was news assignments editor, and I picked up the flu from my head of news. I'm not going to call names because you all will know which station it is, but I don't want to go down that road. I picked up the flu from him, and because I have lupus, I also am asthmatic, I developed pneumonia and had to be warded in hospital for maybe about 3 weeks. And I too was on probation. I was on probation. My probationary period was 3 months. So 3 weeks on the job, 3 weeks in the hospital. The day after I got discharged, I went to work and I was not even allowed to go into the newsroom. Someone from HR escorted me down to HR. I was handed a letter and I was thanked for my services, and that was it. And I remember just feeling so crushed because I love media. Media was my dream job, right? As a journalist, as a broadcaster. And it's in me because even before media, this is how I spoke. I'm just a little more polished because I had persons investing in my gift, my natural gift, who trained me and gave me that confidence to do what I do. I couldn't understand what God was doing at the time. And I remember being so crushed and depressed and trying to make sense of everything. And I remember the year before, as I said, you know, my attempt at suicide in 2010, the Lord had said to me to start this Facebook page called The Voice of Lupus. He gave me the name, everything. So the Voice of Lupus Foundation. So we started it was a page on Facebook just sharing information from Lupus America, Lupus UK, Lupus Canada, that sort of thing. And during that period of me being so depressed, not understand, I just lost my job. I was just fired. What am I going to do now? What to do? What are you saying, God? What are you saying? And I just remember hearing Holy Spirit say to me, make this a physical entity. So that was 2010. And here we are, 2013. So do the maths, 13 years later, Voice of Lupus became a physical entity. And this is my ministry. As a child of God, it's my ministry. I'm not the evangelist that goes on a pulpit. I mean, some doors open that I do that, but I am the evangelist who loves people, who serve people, who have a heart of compassion, because I know what it's like to struggle. And that's why I didn't give up, because it was God who called me to do this. If man had called me to do this, fire burn all you. I done. Right? Plain talk, bad manners, because the pressure I have been through, there are a few people who volunteer and they come and they see me struggle. There are days I struggle to even walk. On World Lupus Day, thank God for a sister in Christ in church. She was there and she's lift weights and things. So, you know, I'm not a thin person. I am a plus size woman, solid woman. And I had to rely on her to support me, to walk and to be able to stand, because for World Lupus Day, because, you know, it was an event to raise awareness, and everybody comes to Rihanna. Even though there are so many other people they can go to, everybody wants to talk to Rihanna. Everybody wants to speak to me to get awareness, to get information, to get this and stuff like that, because I am known as the Lupus Lady. And I physically felt like my life was draining from my body, that I could not hold on any longer. And a lot of people saw that, because I don't know how I was operating, but I was like on a robotic mode. I just knew that I had to get through these hours. My feet were so swollen that I wear Crocs because, you know, my feet don't fit into sneakers. It sometimes don't even fit into the slippers because it's so swollen. And I have to wear, I always have these, and I'm just inviting you into my space a little bit. These stockings, these that go all the way, they reach by the middle of my calf, because I have to wear them so that it allows the foot to slide so it could go into the Crocs. And then what happens is that the water moves and it stays up. So my foot gets a little narrow so I can, and it's very painful, you know, and I don't see this as a curse. I really see this as a blessing, because sometimes we are dealt the hand of adversity, but God uses it always as an opportunity. And, you know, Elizabeth, you may not have the platform with Voice of Lupus to reach thousands, but in your own way, you are reaching, even if it's one person, to give them that encouraging word and say, listen, if I could make it, you could make it too. And that's what we're about. We're here to do this, to hold each other. This is what this organization is about, to hold each other, to encourage each other. There are days, I mean, we are all going through our journeys, but we don't have to do this by ourselves, because when I was going through, which led me to attempt to take my life, was there wasn't support. There wasn't support in place. So that is my mission and my purpose, that no one will walk that lonely journey of being diagnosed with lupus and they don't know where to turn or to get help or to have someone to talk to. And that's why conversations like this is very much needed. And that's why I'm very passionate. I'm very passionate about your care, our care, because when I can't afford to go to see a private doctor. Right now, I need to see someone. I need to see an endocrinologist because I developed something called lymphedema. But I don't even have the money to go privately to see an endocrinologist. And I'm waiting to get a letter of referral to go to Mount Hope to see if I can get through to see an endocrinologist. I have to wait because I don't have the finances to pay privately to see one. I would have loved to go and see Dr. Joel Taloxing. I heard he's one of the top endocrinologists in Trinidad and Tobago. I would love to go see him, but I can't afford it. And I know that that is a story many of you go through, you know, and it's sad. It's sad that, and I think it's unacceptable. That's why I say lupus patients in Trinidad and Tobago, we are medical orphans because we get bumped, we get dismissed. I mean, there are patients who complain that because they go to the casualty so often, they're being accused of being a hypochondriac. We are addicted to painkillers. People are not taking us seriously. Then patients are being bounced around to different clinics because rheumatology can't deal with nephrology. Nephrology cannot deal with endocrinology. Endocrinology can't deal with cardiology. We're not synced. When patients, there are patients who claim, Miss Harilal, I went to do bloods. They lose my blood work. I had to go back in the hospital. You know, that's unacceptable. And if you're playing with our care like that, no wonder the outcome is so grim. That's why we lost in the last three years. Our internal patient registry went from 500 and some 1,500 and some numbers to 1,109 patients. We lost over 300 plus patients in the pandemic. That's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable, you know, and I really, with all the strength that I have, and even if it means that it would be my last breath, you know, I will continue to stand and advocate and have this conversation because it's my heart. It's my heart. If I have to leave this earth better, that there's something in place for patients like us, those with, you know, autoimmune diseases and stuff like that. You know, it's really sad. So that's essentially how Voice of Lupus was built. It wasn't me just, you know, say, okay, I got and start off. I ran from this. Because I didn't even know. I remember having a conversation with former House Speaker Nizam Mohammed when I told him about it, because I didn't even know how to start, how to begin. And I remember calling him because he was my attorney at the time. And I called him up and I said, you know, Mr. Mohammed, the Lord is saying to me to start this. I was diagnosed with lupus and I don't even know where to start. And he laughed and he said, come see me. He didn't even charge money or anything like that. And I remember my first sale was t-shirts. I sold t-shirts to raise money to incorporate Voice of Lupus. We started real humble, you know, real small. I remember the first event I had, maybe 2 people showed up, not counting my mother and my sisters. 2 people showed up, but I was determined. You know, I rent out a place, ordered food. I waste money because nobody show up. People say they're coming, they never show up. But I didn't get discouraged. I just said, you know, God, I know you're telling me to do this, I will do this. And the next year we had plenty people come. And it has been like that every year. New faces come, and you know, we just want you all to know that there's a foundation. The Voice of Lupus Foundation is a community that's representing you. We're here to represent you. We're here to give you a voice, to provide and to help. But I mean, a lot of people expect greater things from me, but physically, my own aspirations don't always line up with my physical body. I think my brain outlives and outdoes so much more than what my physical body can do, but it's not stopping me. You know, it's not going to stop me because I know what God has said to do, and I'm going to do it even if it costs me my life. Because that's why I was given a second chance. God spared me. I was given a second chance to use my life to help others. And I want to encourage you, every one of you who are listening on who has lupus, you're going through this, but you are meant to use this as a stepping stone, as an opportunity. All things work together. So yes, she's here, she's back. So I did mention to you that Gillian Lucky is on, and Justice Lucky would like to share a few words, and I think I would just leave it for her to say what she wants to say concerning lupus awareness and how lupus, the story and what have you. So thank you so much for jumping on. I told everybody you left for court, so nice to see you here. Oh, unmute your mic.
For the sorry Anna, but for the meeting, I just had to jump off and come back on. I told everybody not to disturb me. Let me just thank you very much, Rihanna, for having this session. And I listened to everybody except for the 15 minutes when I was off. This is where, to me, awareness really continues. And you're hitting the nail on the head. Lupus is just one of those things that many people don't know about. And many times people prefer not to know because then they don't even have to get involved. I was diagnosed with discoid lupus in 2009. And it was only... Yes, it's Gillian Lucky. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2009, discoid lupus. And I have an older sister who's a medical practitioner. She lives in Vancouver and she has systemic lupus. And last week on World Lupus Day, it was the first time since 2009 that I ever opened up about lupus, and my sister came on also to speak about her experience. Rihanna has been inviting me to all of the functions and to all of the events, and because of my schedule, I just was unable to make it. I hope Rihanna remembers that when she was telling me what she was doing, I was one of those who said to her, well, look, I right now I may not be able to give you the time, but certainly any other way I could assist, I would. The story of my discoid lupus is not going to be one to get pity points, because I can tell you that there are many people on this platform who have it far worse than me. Discoid is not as bad as systemic lupus, as you all would know. The one thing I would tell you is this: my life changed fundamentally, because for those of you who know about Gillian Lucky, you know I like to be adventurous. I like to be out in the open. I like to, be involved in things. I used to be involved in politics, as you know, and that involves day and night, and especially day, being out on the field, campaigning, or going and visiting persons. One of the symptoms with respect to my discoid lupus is that I cannot be in sunlight. So for those of you, I'm 56, for those of you who remember Dark Shadows and Barnabas Collins, I literally live the life like a Dracula and a vampire. And I tell people, if you want to understand my story of discoid lupus, I am like Barnabas Collins and I have to live without light. Even now I'm sitting in my chambers, and yes, you're seeing light, but even the light you're seeing, and this would be the non-natural light, that affects me. In about 10 minutes, you will just see what my secretary calls the red mark and the scar come on, and maybe just 2 war paint signs of red. And that tells me, okay, it's time for me now to, go into total darkness. And I just want to say that there are 3 things that my sister said on the platform last week, and she said the 3 S's, and what helps her to deal with systemic lupus, which she has to deal with. And she starts by saying, and I just want to say, lupus is not a death sentence. It is not a death sentence. It is a call for lifestyle change. And when you are changing something, it's never easy. And the 3 S's are: 1 S, you've got to know your stresses. 2 S, you've got to have a specialist with you. In my case, it's my sister in Vancouver, and she's always saying, Gillian, you have people in Trinidad who are experts. I say to her, Cindy Ann, that's her name. You're my specialist and you're my 24/7. And the 3 thing is the support. And you heard Rihanna and so many people on this platform speak about support. Support is so necessary, because lupus can make you an loner, and it can get you depressed. And you really sometimes don't know what is happening. I just ask everybody to remember those 3 S's. What are your stresses? Stay away from them. 2, specialists. I'm not necessarily talking about a medical specialist, but a go-to person. And that's where Rihanna and the Voice of Lupus is very important, to help people to know where to go. In my field of law, many times people have said to me, Gillian, thank you for helping me. I just needed to know where to go. So that people just want free advice. They just want to know where to go. Many times we take it for granted that people know where to go. And when you don't know where to go, you're totally lost. And that makes you even feel more depressed and more lonely. And the third thing is to know that you have support. And that's what the Voice of Lupus to me provides for everybody, to know that you're not alone and you're not there alone. And I heard somebody speak on the platform about the fact that sometimes people don't understand and they're very quick to say that you're lazy or you're not doing your work. And you're right, I've been a lecturer for 39 years. And over the last 12 years, what I've been saying to people is many times you think that students are lazy and they haven't prepared for the tutorials and they're not doing their work or in class, they're looking as though, you know, they're totally tired. Instead of just going on the assumption that the student is not performing deliberately or is just totally distracted, they need to reach out and call the student aside quietly. Don't embarrass the student. The days of teachers saying and lecturers saying, I'm highlighting you, you know, I'm picking on you, because their assumption is that you are deliberately being delinquent. The better approach is to call that student aside, which I have done. And I have said quietly, I said, listen, I know you love my law of evidence and you know I must be your favorite lecturer. What is wrong? What is the problem? And many times they have stood up, they have said, it was just with us, but they said, you know, Judge, thanks for at least asking me. It isn't that I'm not paying attention in your class, you know, it's just that I have sometimes, 2 people have told me it was lupus, others indicated it was autoimmune diseases. And in other cases, what they said to them is you need to get medical attention because something is wrong. Because one student said, I just feel tired all the time. And yes, I'll tell you, I feel tired all the time. I am totally fatigued. But you know what I tell myself? Every morning I wake up and I say, okay, everybody, all parts of the body, we're going to work today. Brain and I are going. Any part who doesn't want to go, you all could stay at home, but brain and I are going. And when I go in the car, I say, okay, I see everybody came with us. And that's my little way of keeping myself perked up. And I just want to end by saying something. There are steps to deal with lupus. I have used the acronym STEPS. For me, S, sunshine, stay out of sunlight. At 11 a.m. every day, my secretary, who is awesome, her name is Brenda, she will come. And even though I have a lovely view in the waterfront where all the judges are now in the judicial waterfront complex, we know what we have to do. With all the glass, pull the blinds, and I pay to make sure that I have what is the darkest tint on the window. So it's nice to see the view, but at the end of the day, I can't enjoy the view. Sunlight is something, and I know I can't go out in the sunlight. So many of the Voice of Lupus events, once it's the sun, I cannot go. When I go out, I tell people straight. When they say, Julian, come now, you don't want to come with us, you don't want to come on the veranda. And I say to them politely, I said, I have lupus and I can't take the sunlight. 2, tenderness. Nobody's asking for pity points, but treat people with tenderness. Treat people the way you want to be treated. And that's what I tell people. I don't need you hugging me and holding me. But I need tenderness, meaning consideration. Understand that I have lupus. So when I need to sit, when I need to lecture, when I need to even be in the courtroom, when in my chambers, I take off the lights. In about 15 minutes, the lights in my chambers will come off. We need to have people being tender. And when I say tender, I mean being considerate and compassionate. The environment. Some people spoke about, you know, employers who don't even appreciate what are the symptoms of lupus, what are the triggers for lupus, and why you need your environment to be one in which you can operate. And I'm saying, and my sister said this last week on the platform we were on at Shewarding Law School, had a platform for it. And what she was saying in Canada, she has had to do, and what they're doing in North America, and we need to do it in the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago, is you go to your employer and you have that conversation. And I remember another person on the platform, Suzanne C. Prasad, who doesn't have lupus, but who is an attorney at law, said, employers have to work out what can be done. It's like having a specially abled person, or as I say, specially gifted person in your environment. When I was the director of PCA, we had Miss Vera Bajan working with us. And I remember before Vera came on board, I had a staff meeting and I said, we are going to have somebody who is specially gifted and abled. Let us see how we can work around it. Let us see how we can make her feel a part of the team. Let us make sure that we are not inconsiderate. When you open a door, Vera has no hands. When you open a door and you let it slam back, you will be, you know, hitting her if she's behind you. And I'm saying the same thing. You need to go to your employers. And I would suggest, you know, you get your team, you tell them, listen, I have lupus, it means that sometimes I'm going to be fatigued. Sometimes you will find that, you know, I can't do certain things. Sometimes I'm going to have the work from home policy. And we've done that here in the judiciary for persons, not only those suffering with lupus, but persons who, sometimes we have persons who are pregnant who say straight, I need, you know, my first trimester is difficult. You know, what can I do? We've got to work as a team. The other P is to be patient and understanding. So it's STEP, patient and understanding. And the other S is literally just knowing your stressors. So my steps are sunlight, stay away, Jillian. S. T, tenderness. I treat people compassionately because that's what I would need with respect to lupus. E, the environment. Make sure it's an environment in which you can work, even if you have to work from home. P, be patient and understanding, and that's what we also need. And S, we need to know what our stressors are. And I just want to say to Rihanna, to you and Voice of Lupus, I will continue to give support. I will continue to raise the awareness. And I'm saying straight, at the end of the day, many persons are in positions where it's not just those of us who have lupus. I've seen many persons. I had a friend who died from a massive heart attack and only found out after he died from the massive heart attack with no warning. His wife told me, she said, Jillian, for years, he didn't want to tell you that he was suffering from it, but he didn't want to go to the doctor because he had no money and he didn't know how he would have afforded the surgery. And I am saying that that must not be the reason that people cannot get the help they need. It mustn't be because they can't afford it. We have to pay forward. We have to assist. And I'm giving you all, as I've done over the years, it's nothing new to me. I help many people and I say, just pay it forward. Just keep paying it forward. Just help people when you can. And that's the assistance I will give. Rihanna, thanks very much for the time. Thanks everybody for, listening. As I said, I don't go into the pity points, because there always be, the desiderata tells us, don't compare yourselves to others. They'll always be greater and lesser. And I always say to people, don't compare yourself. There'll always be those who have it better than you and worse than you. Work with what you have. But there's no but. I want to get rid of the word but. And what we just need to keep doing in Trinidad and Tobago is helping. You realize there are people who have children or who suffer from, who are autistic. And you hear the autistic group saying, they're being left aside. And you have other groups saying it. We have a strong advocate in Rihanna. We have a strong advocate in ourselves. And I know I've taken the time, Rihanna, but I just wanted to give the assurance. And even though on the lupus spectrum, I'm on the, what you would call the less severe, I've gone through the steroids. And as a result, I was telling you this many years ago, Rihanna, I was put on steroids. And as a result now, steroids have a lasting impact. My skin is literally so thin. The slightest thing causes me to be in a tremendous pain. If my finger just, if something falls on my toe, I'm talking about a soap, soap you shower with, like this morning, the soap just fell on my toe and it was immense pain. And I'm like, but this was never me. I was always a Cape Crusader running all about in the sunshine. I can't even take the sunlight. People say, we are the hired, let's go outside. And sometimes people think you're being arrogant and you're being aloof and you don't want to be with them. It's not that. You are on the veranda where there's sun. I am a Dracula, a vampire. I am going to drop down. So thank you very much, everyone, for your time. And again, I just say, we all have to deal with it. An important point is, and I want to encourage you, be brave enough to tell those you love and those who you're working with. And I know some people said they can't even get jobs. We have to work on that too, because with artificial intelligence and technology, we have to retrain ourselves how to do things. And there's always some job that somebody could do. We just have to be creative and determine what it is we can do. And Rihanna, as I said, you will talk to me on a private level, Rihanna, and what I could do, and just let me know, because I am here to assist people. If I can help somebody as I pass along, then my living will not be in vain. I thank you very much for your attention and your time.
Thank you so much. And I have to say that, I'm so proud of Jillian, because I jokingly told her I waited for her 8 years, always asking her for the past 8 years to, come and speak, come and share your story. The position of influence would be so impactful. And here she is 8 years later, making her debut, and I'm smiling and I'm gushing, because I'm just so proud of this woman.
Rihanna, can I just tell you, I'm interrupting you only to tell you that on the Hubert Law School platform, they know your name, because I told them for 8 years, Rihanna, Harry Paul had been asking me to participate and everything. And they know your name now in the law school.
Well,
So
I hope they know Harry Lal, not Harry Paul. That's not my name.
That's my mistake. No, that's my mistake, because that's actually a case we were speaking about.
Oh,
so
Lord.
Harry Lal, no, I corrected. No, I gave you correctly. And the reason I'm saying that is yesterday when I was asked to do something from somebody at the school, and I said, no, I can't do it. They said, we're not going to wait 8 years like Rihanna, Harry Potter. So that's a big joke now. Everything is, don't give us a Rihanna. I said, hold on, a Rihanna or Rihanna? I said, no. They said, don't give us a Rihanna, because we know Rihanna is 8 years. So I just want to say, Rihanna, you were the, you remember, I mean, you have been calling on me for so many times to come forward, and I told them on the platform, it was the first time I was speaking openly about lupus. I've never done it. So this is the second time that I have come out openly and spoken about lupus. I'm somebody who's very private, and I do not like people think, oh, you're in the public sphere and you're a judge, so you want I have never spoken about it. And I told them I felt badly that I was not speaking on your platform first, but on another platform. But that's the joke now when anybody's there. They say, don't give us Ariana. And that's after you. Don't give us the 8 years. Okay?
Well, you know, I think this is encouragement for a lot of those who, you know, feel so two-minded to, you know, openly share, because I know many of us live in private, and if we can have an esteemed person like Justice Lucky come out and share and put a face and a voice to owning a story, it gives us that encouragement that each one of us really have to pick up the mantle of being our own advocate, and of course, lending assistance to keep the word out there in raising awareness. So I want to thank you, Justice Lucky. Thank you for spending some time with us. I know you always say, just call you Jillian. You've always been a heart for people. I mean, I have been a journalist in 15 years when I was in media, followed you on the campaign. I remember so much. I know I was one of those who were very shy, so you never really saw me, but I saw you, and I have followed your career as a politician. And, you know, you are really one of my heroes and someone that I look up to, even with your dad, Anthony Lucky. An esteemed person. You know, you come from a really esteemed background, and I really thank you for just, you know, being here and sharing, most importantly, sharing, owning your story and being so authentic. So thank you. All right, so the last person who I would love to, you know, just bring on here is from a different perspective, and this is Christine Dabadik, her granddaughter, well-known, very gifted spoken word artist, unfortunately lost the battle to lupus. It was so sudden. She was supposed to, you know, start her official role as youth ambassador for the Voice of Lupus Foundation. Unfortunately, we lost her, but her grandmother is here and she would like to share a few words. So, Christine, you can put your camera on. Hi.
Yeah. Hi. You hearing me? I guess you're hearing me okay?
Yes.
Okay.
Do I get to see you too?
Oh, hold on 1 second. Just 1 second. You know, I am not as technologically adept as you young people. Hold on a sec. I am trying to, okay. Are you seeing me now? Yes. Okay. All right. Now
we've known each other since what, 2011, between that period, 13.
Maybe around 2014 when you wrote the book. Yes, somewhere around 2014 or 2015.
Yes, that's right.
You know? So yeah. So I kind of joined the program late. I was busy at home here and I just went through my WhatsApp messages and saw that you were having this Zoom session. So I said, you know, let me join. You know, so I only joined when the person before Justice Lucky was giving her comments, was reciting her tale of her lupus experience. So as you said, I'm taking it from another angle. I am taking it from more or less like a lupus supporter. Okay, and for those who don't know, my granddaughter, Kayla Paris, she had been diagnosed with lupus ever since she was about 7 or 8 years old. And again, the doctor at that point in time, maybe a rheumatologist, he was very reluctant to even test her for lupus, because he kept saying that, oh, it was, first it was dengue and stuff like that. And I had to tell her mother that this is not dengue, this is going on for too long. Insist that the doctor does this test. So he finally did it. It was diagnosed as lupus. Her father lives in Canada. We had been up to Canada, and I was fortunate enough to get her into Sick Kids Hospital. And the doctor there, Dr. Silverman, who is very renowned in the field, he also, confirmed the diagnosis of lupus. Now, it seems as though when she went to the hospital, there was a whole team of doctors surrounding her. Each time she went there as an outpatient. She actually had to stay in Canada for about 6 months for them to monitor her. And there was a whole field of everybody, all different specialists, medical specialists dealing with her. Anyway, she was all right. She stayed there for 6 months. She came back down. And when she was about 10 years old, she had her first serious episode. And this is that her feet and so started swelling. So when she finally went to the doctor, they had told the mother to get her to the hospital. That is not very good. She eventually ended up in the children's ward. She had like 7 seizures in one morning. And she also developed encephalitis. So they did think that she would have some brain damage. Fortunately, and by God's grace, she had no brain damage. So she came out and she was good. She was pretty good. Continuing along, she was able to get through her secondary school, but to the final year in her secondary school for lower 6, she went to Bishop Sanstey. In lower 6, both she and her mother at the same time. Now, her mother was also diagnosed with mixed connective tissue disorder, which was a cross between lupus and scleroderma. Rihanna, you just let me know how much time I have, please.
You go ahead, Chris, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. Her mother had mixed connective tissue disorder, which was a cross between lupus and scleroderma, with the scleroderma becoming more pronounced as the disease progressed. And she also had a younger sister. Now, mind you, her mother was not diagnosed with this until about 4 or 5 years after she had Kayla. So at the point in time when she had Kayla, she didn't know that she had any lupus. When she had the second child, she did know that she had it, and she had this second daughter. And unfortunately, the daughter at about 11 years old was also diagnosed with lupus. Now, after that episode, okay, so both she and her mother had their kidneys failed at almost the same time. So both of them went on to dialysis, and they chose the peritoneal dialysis. Unfortunately for Kayla, it was almost nightly. She did the dialysis every night. It was almost nightly a case of cramps, headaches, upset feelings. Either the pressure was too high or her pressure was too low. And then in 2020, I guess, I don't know if this was a case of a sort of like a medical failure also, and also maybe the home failure, maybe not watching the diet and stuff like that. But what happened, she just started getting practically weaker and weaker. It turned out that the peritoneal dialysis was, while it was extracting the fluids, it was not extracting the toxins properly. So the toxin built up in her system. She had to be admitted at Mount Hope once again. And this time she stayed for an entire month. She went into a special ward initially just for 1 day. Then she was changed to the high dependency unit. And then she had to go to the ICU. She spent quite a time in ICU. Her blood count was down to 3. The white blood cells was down to about 0.25. She developed sepsis. She had pneumonia. She had another infection that they didn't know what was going on. And a couple of the medications 2 different doctors were giving her caused a depletion of her red blood cells. So that led to her general weak feeling. Now, she had a real time of it at Mount Hope. Anyway, she survived that. And she was doing pretty all right, and she had to switch to hemodialysis. And I must say there was a big difference from the time she started the hemodialysis. She was, the body aches and the nightly session, she was able to get a good night's sleep and so, those disappeared. But unfortunately, from around August this year, I noticed that her feet, even after she came from dialysis, her feet were swollen. I said, told her, I said, Kayla, why are your feet swollen? You just had dialysis. She said, oh, Granny, you know, they said it's because I'm taking some steroids and the steroids trap the fluid and so. So after asking her that about twice or three times, she was getting a little bit annoyed and upset that I asked. So I just left it. In between that time, for 1 or 2 days, the feet did go down. The doctor had, the rheumatologist had taken her, told her to wean herself off of these steroids, which she started doing. So the feet did go down. But unfortunately, she just suddenly, on the 10th, the morning of the 10th of January, she was fine. She had a busy, very busy weekend. She had a busy December month. And she was quite okay. At about 11 minutes past 12, she asked me to bring her correct for her, which she took for her racing heart. Bring the correct. So when I went in, she said her heart was racing so badly. Anyway, well, then it was a case of her chest was hurting her. And she couldn't breathe properly. So I said, would you like to go to the hospital? She said, yes. So I said, okay, let me go and change, put back on street clothes. She said, fine. I went to do that. And then she just said, hurry, Granny. I called out to my husband. We said, okay, we're taking her down. He was helping her down the steps. We reached the car and she collapsed. She was gone in literally 15 minutes. That was the end of Kayla, right? Now, I must say that she had a very generous spirit. We do not know exactly how difficult it was for her, although every now and again she would say, Granny, you know, this is a tough life. I would say, yeah, Kayla, it's tough, but it could be a lot tougher. She said, yeah, but it's still tough. So sometimes I kind of beat myself on the head for not maybe acknowledging exactly how tough it was for her, having not had the disease and being a fairly healthy person all through my life. It was a little difficult. And I didn't mention that unfortunately her mother caught COVID during the COVID, although they were the first set of people to go into lockdown and so. But the COVID came into the household and her mother herself caught it. And unfortunately her younger sister didn't get it, fortunately. So she was taken away to her other grandparents. And within 1 week, her mother passed, all right? Her mother died. And I believe that the mother's going affected Kayla greatly because while I was always her greatest support and the person all she would always say was 100% beside her all the time, her mother was the one who would actually know the symptoms and actually experience the symptoms of the disease. You know, it requires a whole lot of understanding, tenderness, as Justice Lucky said, you know, consideration. And I have been kind of knocked on my head a couple times, maybe by whether it was my siblings, even her parents, for paying too much attention to her and spoiling her. But it was because I was maybe very sorry that she had a childhood where she could not really play. And I mean, she was like a fast runner and everything, and all of that disappeared when she was 10 years old. You know, in addition to which, when they fed her the steroids at 10 years old, at one point when she was after that bout in hospital, she was actually on 32 different pills during the day, 12 of which were steroids. So she went from being a very skinny 65-pounder to a 95-pounder and being totally unrecognizable. And from one of her poems that she wrote later, it seems she had a lot of difficulty with the other children in school at that time. All right, she didn't get much compassion from them. She was, you know, taunted and so on. I believe her sister also went through that same sort of experience when she got on the steroids in primary school and developed all this weight gain, you know. So it is that we have to maybe have the people around us sensitized, around lupus patients, sensitized to exactly what is lupus, the sufferings and the daily pains and trauma that they go through, and for them to be actually more understanding, more accepting. And I must say it is almost a 24-hour care that you have to give these patients, okay? Even on their good days, right? Because what happens is that you are always alert to maybe a call from them, or so you're always on the alert that at any point in time they could call and there's a crisis. So it would do something for your own stress levels, and those you yourself have to maybe make sure that you yourself keep a proper diet, you know, get into some exercise, you know, have your own support system. You don't have the illness, but you yourself need a support system, you know, to be always able to provide that support from them. Okay. She was supposed to start helping Rihanna out with her ambassadorial work with this Voice of Lupus. Unfortunately, she was not able to deal with that. She was also supposed to write a book after having written a book of poems. She really wanted to write a book of, what you may call it, a book of a story of her challenges and how she met them. Now, again, about the medical system and so, she had some very good doctors and some very supportive doctors at Mount Hope. Okay, now I don't know if part of this illness and stuff, this later part of her deterioration, if it wasn't picked up, because one of her doctors had retired a year or so before, and the other doctor, he had been transferred to another ward or another section of the hospital. So he wasn't seeing her again on a weekly basis. So I'm not too sure if he was there on a weekly basis, if he would have picked up on her condition sooner. But I guess all of that is speculation. It might be that it was just her time, because from what I realized, that from the time both she and her mother were diagnosed with the illness, it is that both of them lived for almost exactly the same amount of time, 16 or 17 years after they were diagnosed. Both of them almost went in similar circumstances, although her mother, Simone, had COVID, but Simone had got a seizure and she went very suddenly on her way to the hospital. And Kayla was more or less the same way. She didn't get the seizure, but she got a heart attack, you know? So all the lupus patients, and so you all need to know that you all really have to watch your diet. Be very careful if you don't have kidney failure. Try and avoid getting kidney failure. So please watch your diet. Try and maybe what you may call it, all the provisions and so that you eat. Those are very important. Check. Go. You can Google and see exactly what it is you're supposed to eat or not supposed to eat. And it's very important for you to get some exercise. All right, the exercise is going to help your heart a whole lot. So try and make time to get your exercise. If even you have to do it, there's some things on YouTube, some keep fit instructors and so on YouTube that you could go on and spend at least half an hour a day doing it for yourselves, okay? Rihanna, I think I should have said enough here now. I am not too sure if there's anything else you needed to ask me or to add, or if I have left out anything.
I mean, you know, our love goes to you, and I don't want you to blame yourself. I think you did the best that you could. You were always there. The only way I knew it was you always there. That was you were always there for her. There is nothing that you could have done differently, Chris. I don't want you to blame yourself. I wish that we had the power to change things and we could get her back. And I know you wish you could turn the hands of time, but you can't. And unfortunately, the only way that you can pay honor and keep her alive is to jump on and just continue the awareness, support us in whatever way you can. But one of the things that I wanted to just ask you, it's been a couple months now. What has that life been like? I mean, I know that it's a very sensitive topic, but you know, losing someone to lupus, how has that affected you?
Well, it has been a trying time. I would say that most days I am fairly okay because I usually would walk, and I guess what makes it more trying is that Kayla had been a part of life of my husband and myself for the past 18, 20 months since her mother died. She came to live with us. So she had been a part of our life, and she was really a very vital part of our life as we see now. You know, it's just a sort of an emptiness that she isn't here. Because she was always, when she wrote a poem, she had this gift of speaking that anything, anywhere she went and she comes home and she would relate the story to you, it was always so lively. She would always put this humorous twist to it, you know. she had a real flair for like drama and stuff. Even the doctors at the hospital used to ask her if she never thought of doing stand-up comedy and stuff
no, you
like
did
that.
not.
So, you know. What's this?
No, someone.
Hello?
Someone's mic was on. That's okay.
Oh.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So it has been a difficult time, you know, coming to terms with it. Kind of, and then, you know, getting rid of all her stuff. Well, I did that pretty soon, pretty much, maybe a week or two, or maybe in a month after she died. I called her good friends. She had some very good friends, so they were the first to come. So I asked them, see what you want. They took what they want. It turned out that the friends got, cousins got, numerous cousins, numerous friends. My husband even had to ask if Kayla had a warehouse at home here when so many people just kept leaving with garbage bags and stuff. But I really wanted them. And then a cousin of mine even asked me why I was getting rid of them so soon. But I didn't think it was any point in holding on to her stuff, especially her clothes and shoes and stuff. She's a young person. They have a lot of young people. Styles come and go. All of them would have been so, well, I mean, her friends were very traumatized, and I have had to deal with the friends also. So like for 3 months for her passing was actually Easter Monday. So about 15 of our very close friends were home here by us. We provided lunch for them, did a pot of pilau and coleslaw and chicken and stuff. And they came and they spent maybe about 5 hours they were here with us, you know, just reminiscing, I guess, just being there together and stuff like that. She also had some very good friends at the hospital who she met in the dialysis ward, 2 friends, Naeem and Christine. Unfortunately, they weren't part of the thing. The friends who came were mostly like school friends. So they were part, they are supposed to come, but I sort of more or less keep up with them and they keep up with me. You know, they always check in, Granny, how you're going and stuff, because they know that I have been always there for Kayla, you know, at every point in her life I had been there, you know. So that is about it. But it's not a very easy thing to know, especially that she had left so suddenly. You didn't get a chance to say goodbye, you know. Yes. I believe, though, maybe she knew that she was going. She knew that her strength was failing, because what I understand, I mean, and what I've seen is that really during that Christmas, she spent out all of her money, literally. Her friends said that she gave out so many Christmas gifts. She made sure a couple of times when I had people here that she came out and she was part of the crowd. The neighbors had something. I said, well, Kayla, what about coming and being with them? She hadn't come in previous years. She did come, you know. So I think maybe that she knew her time was coming to an end. Maybe she really didn't want to, whether it was to alarm me or alarm us, you know. And strangely enough, my husband's birthday was the day or 2 days before, on January the 8th. He hadn't opened his Christmas gifts. She said she came to him on the 9th, I think, or the 8th. She said, Grandpa, you didn't open my Christmas gift. She went to the tree, she bought it. She said, open it now. You go ahead and open it now. And the gift was a picture of the 2 of them, you know. She said, you have pictures of all the grandchildren. And she said, you know, I am your favorite grandchild and you don't have me. So here is one of the 2 of us, you know. So I really think that she was going. But I must say, too, that she herself was very special in that she always made sure and let people know that they were special to her, made sure that they were loved by her. She was grateful for anything that anybody did for her. And in turn, she was always very generous to her friends. One friend told me during the pandemic, when she wasn't working, Kayla would give her $500 every month because she was doing a what you may call it, she was employed in a in a job that kind of there was no use during COVID. She couldn't do it during COVID, right? Now, I mean, Kayla was only working a couple of days a week, so she was only getting a couple $1,000s a month herself, you know, but out of what she had, she was able to give her. Although I guess later on she would come by Granny and Granny would supplement her, you know. But I mean, at the same point in time, it wasn't a case of her saying, well, child, I really don't have anything too much, you know. So she was always very grateful for whatever she got and whatever anybody did for her, you know. And I think that is always important for even you who are lupus patients and so to remember. So, you know, thank people. I don't want you to think that you have to thank them for everything, but it doesn't take anything out of you to thank them and to make people feel that they themselves are appreciated and you appreciate what they do for you, you know? So, and well, that's about it. I mean, we have to go on live. I remember, I mean, every 10th of every month I say, you know, this 10th was 4 months. a good friend would tell me, Granny is 4 months today. You know, the other day it was, you know, I went to my first party without Kayla, looking at all the pictures, it just don't feel the same, you know, that sort of thing. So it has been an experience, you know, but I must say, I had lost a son before, and I always saw that nothing in this life prepares a mother for losing a child. Nothing again prepares you for losing a grandchild. You know, so it is that you have to, I guess, be strong, you know, think that maybe, as the doctors would say, this was a good way for her to go. You know, it's hard for those who are left behind, but it was a good way that she didn't have to go through all the endless suffering and stuff. You know, so that's it, Rihanna.
Thank you. So May 10th was World Lupus Day, and we held our candlelight vigil, and I lit a candle for her in memory of her and in honor of her. You know, so I hope you know, as you have that fight still in you, I know you're very you are also an example, because I know over the years, looking at you support your granddaughter, you found ways to encourage her to own her story. Especially encouraging her at that young age to author that book. And we received, I'll always remember that. I was so amazed that this young, tiny little girl in a uniform coming to tell me that she's doing this book, she's publishing this book, and she wants to give the Voice of Lupus Foundation a donation. And when we collected it on the Brian Lara Promenade,
break it up a little bit.
I said, when we collected the donation on the Brian Lara Promenade, I remember $1,500, and I'm just saying, wow. This young girl, look at this, look at the impact, you know, the heart that she has. So I can bear witness to her giving nature, wanting to have a great impact in her story to really touch lives. So I want to thank you for jumping in, and I look forward to your support for the Voice of Lupus Foundation as we continue to, you know, advocate and help others. You know, and even out of her death, she was able to bless, you know, quite a number of patients through the donation that was collected at the church service. You know, so I want to thank you. All right, so everyone, well, I must say thank you to those of you who stayed the course. It's already after 1. I want to thank each and every one of you, all our speakers, every patient, family members who've been here. And special thanks to the San Fernando City Corporation, the Public Health Department. I know that this was certainly a very impactful session for them, as well as for each of us in terms of sharing. So thank you again.
Okay.
Something? You wanted to say something?
Well, no, I was just saying, I forgot to say that I should have given a special mention to the doctors, the medical staff and so at Mount Hope. And also a couple of other doctors like the orthopedic surgeon, Dr. Toby, because she had to have a few operations. And those were done at Princess Elizabeth Center. So for anybody who has, you know, and especially if you're under 18 and stuff like that, you know, if you have any bone issues and stuff like that, you should check out the Princess Elizabeth Center, because those you can get your treatment and stuff at much reduced rates, you know, so sometimes it's free when you think, you know, because money is always an issue, you know. So I just want to thank them. And then there were others, you know, she met later, Dr. Perkins and Dr. Solomon and stuff, and there were a few other doctors, you know. So I just want to just figure that I should just mention them. Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. So guys, we are saying goodbye for now, and thank you for being here. Please be reminded that it's still Lupus Awareness Month, and we do have our Lupus Summit, or virtual Lupus Summit. I believe it was carded for the 23rd, but I'm dealing with some medical stuff personally, so I have to reschedule that. I believe the new date would be the 29th of May. Of course, we will be sending out all the information and stuff like that. So I want to thank everyone for joining in again, and keep posted, keep tuned, and keep connected to the Voice of Lupus Foundation. And want to say good night. So take care, right? I'm saying good night now, okay, guys, because I want to go take a rest. So good night for me. Bye.
Bye.